You ever hear a story so outrageous you think it has to be made up? Well, buckle in, because this one's going to leave your jaw on the floor. Imagine a woman so obsessed with rules, fines, and control that she thought she could tow my wheelchair. Yeah, you heard me right. Not a car, not a bike, but my wheelchair. It all started on a warm Saturday morning in our little neighborhood. I was sitting outside, enjoying the fresh air, when the familiar screech of Karen's voice pierced the peace. Patricia Hendress, everyone just called her. HOA Karen marched toward my porch like a sheriff ready to make an arrest. She had a clipboard clutched to her chest and a face twisted into her usual permanent scowl. "Your device is blocking the walkway," she barked, pointing at my motorized wheelchair parked neatly next to the ramp I'd built. HOA rules clearly state no large objects obstructing communal areas. If you don't move it, I'll have it towed. I blinked at her, stunned. "Karen, that's not an object, it's my legs. My mobility. You can't just tow someone's wheelchair." But reason never worked with her. She jabbed her pen like a sword. "Rules are rules. You think your little contraption makes you special? I've got power here, and I'll use it." I laughed, thinking she was bluffing. But a few hours later, I heard the rumble of a tow truck creeping into our cul-de-sac. My stomach dropped. I rolled outside just in time to see the driver scratching his head in confusion as Karen pointed at my wheelchair like it was a junk car. "That's what you're towing," she ordered. The guy looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "Lady, that's medical equipment. I can't hook that up." Karen stomped her foot. "Do it! I'm the HOA president, and this eyesore has been cluttering the block long enough." My neighbors began gathering, phones out, filming every second. And me? I wasn't about to let this insanity slide. I pulled out my own phone and dialed 911. The dispatcher's voice was calm. But when I said, "My HOA president is trying to tow my wheelchair," there was a pause. Then a sharp, "Officers are on their way." And that's when things really started to spiral out of Karen's control. By the time the police car rolled into the cul-de-sac, half the neighborhood had gathered like it was a Saturday night show. Phones were up, whispers flew through the crowd, and there stood Karen, puffed up with authority like she was the queen of the HOA universe. The officers stepped out, sunglasses glinting, calm but clearly trying to figure out what kind of call they'd just answered. One of them, Officer Ramirez, approached me first. "Sir, we got a report you're being harassed about. Your wheelchair?" I nodded, pointing to where my chair sat under the ramp. "Harmless and completely out of the way. She called a tow truck to haul it off. Says it's against HOA rules." The officer's eyebrows shot up. "A wheelchair?" He turned toward Karen. "Ma'am, you called this in?" Karen crossed her arms, all smug confidence. "Not just called it in, officer. I ordered it. Look, rules are rules. That oversized contraption blocks the walkway and lowers neighborhood standards. Our bylaws are very clear." The second officer couldn't help it. He laughed out loud. "With all due respect, ma'am, that's not an oversized contraption. That's federally protected medical equipment. You can't touch it. You definitely can't tow it." But Karen doubled down, her voice rising enough for the whole crowd to hear. "This neighborhood doesn't cater to exceptions. If he wants special treatment, he should move somewhere else. I don't care if it's a wheelchair or a rocket ship. If it's in violation, it's going." The gasps from the neighbors were loud, but Karen was too blinded by her own arrogance to notice. That's when the tow truck driver finally spoke up. He stepped back, arms raised like he wanted no part in this circus. "Look, lady, I ain't touching that. Not with a 10-foot pole. You try to force me. You're the one getting sued, not me." Karen spun on him like a storm. "You work for me. Do as you're told." But Officer Ramirez cut her off. His tone shifted from amused to serious. "Ma'am, you need to stop talking right now. You're attempting to interfere with a disabled resident's federally protected rights. That's harassment. That's discrimination. And depending on how far you push this, it could become a criminal matter." Karen's face flushed crimson. She stammered, searching for some comeback. But the weight of the crowd and those flashing police lights started breaking through her mask of control. Still, she wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Karen wasn't the type to back down. Not even when two officers and a crowd of neighbors were staring her down. Her jaw tightened, and she puffed herself up like she was about to deliver a courtroom speech. "You don't understand," she snapped, waving her clipboard. "I am the elected president of this HOA. My word is law here. If I say the wheelchair has to go, then it goes. That's the way this community stays orderly. Without rules, there's chaos." Officer Ramirez exchanged a look with his partner, then turned back to her. "Ma'am, an HOA doesn't outrank federal law. You're dangerously close to violating the Americans with Disabilities Act. That's not order. That's discrimination." The crowd murmured in agreement, some even clapping. A neighbor shouted, "Yeah, Karen. Maybe learn the law before you play dictator." Phones were still filming, and I could see Karen realizing that every single word was being documented. But instead of backing off, she doubled down. She pointed at my wheelchair again. That thing is making the neighborhood look like a hospital ward. Buyers don't want to see medical junk sitting around. Property values matter, and I won't let one person's needs drag the rest of us down. My stomach nodded at her words, but the anger in the crowd was louder. Someone yelled, "He's our neighbor, not your enemy." Another added, "We're proud to have him here." Karen's face twisted, and I swear steam could have come out of her ears. "Fine," she snapped. "If none of you care about the rules, then I'll enforce them myself." She stormed toward my wheelchair like she was about to lay hands on it. That's when Officer Ramirez stepped in, planting himself firmly between her and me. His voice cut sharp. "Ma'am, step back. Right now." Karen froze mid-step, glaring at him like she couldn't believe someone dared to block her path. "You can't stop me. This is private property." The officer shook his head. "Actually, we can. And if you so much as touch this man's chair, you're looking at charges for harassment, destruction of medical equipment, and possibly assault. Do you really want to test that in front of half your neighborhood filming?" The silence was thick. For the first time, Karen's bravado faltered. Her eyes darted nervously to the phones pointed at her, the flashing police car lights reflecting off her pale face. And then, just when I thought she might finally crack, the sound of a car horn blared. Karen's luxury SUV had just been boxed in by a second tow truck, but this time, it wasn't here for me. When that second tow truck pulled up, the whole crowd went from tense silence to buzzing curiosity. The driver hopped down, clipboard in hand, and walked straight past me, straight past the officers, heading right for Karen's shiny black SUV. Karen's eyes went wide. "What do you think you're doing?" she screeched, running toward him. The driver barely looked up as he started hooking her car. "Ma'am, this vehicle is being towed on police orders. Registration expired, unpaid tickets, and apparently it's been parked illegally across the fire lane." The crowd erupted into laughter. Someone shouted, "Oh, the HOA queen's not above the law after all." Karen's face turned beet red. She spun toward the officers, jabbing her finger. "You can't do this to me. I'm the one who called for enforcement. I'm the one maintaining order." Officer Ramirez's voice was calm, almost amused now. "No, ma'am. You tried to abuse authority you don't actually have. And now it looks like the only vehicle leaving this neighborhood today is yours." The tow truck driver tightened the last chain and raised her SUV onto the flatbed. Karen shrieked like her world was collapsing. "You can't tow my car. Do you know who I am?" And that's when I finally spoke up. My voice was steady, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "Yeah, Karen, you're the woman who tried to tow a man's wheelchair. And today karma towed yours instead." The crowd roared with laughter and applause. Some neighbors clapped me on the shoulder. A few even shouted, "Justice!" The officers couldn't help but grin. Karen, meanwhile, stood frozen in the middle of the street, fists clenched, eyes wild. But there was nothing she could do. Her SUV rolled away, chained tight as her power crumbled in front of everyone. Officer Ramirez gave me a reassuring nod. "If she bothers you again, don't hesitate to call." But something tells me she won't be pushing her luck anymore. And he was right. From that day on, Karen's reign of terror lost its bite. Sure, she still waved her clipboard and muttered about rules, but nobody took her seriously anymore. Not after the video of the wheelchair tow showdown went viral in our neighborhood group and beyond. As for me, I kept my wheelchair exactly where it belonged. Right by my ramp, where I needed it. And every time I rolled past the empty space where Karen's SUV used to sit, I couldn't help but smile. Because sometimes, justice doesn't come with a gavel. Sometimes it comes with a tow truck. Guys, if you enjoyed this crazy HOA Karen story, don't forget to smash that like button. Drop a comment about your own wild HOA experiences, and of course subscribe so you don't miss the next unbelievable story. Your support keeps these videos coming.